Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today I'm going to be doing my Game of the Year 2021. For sure this will be a very subjective list. I'm not trying to gauge what I think are objectively the best games to come out this year. I'm choosing the games that I personally enjoyed the most. I think this is the best way to do it because it means that everyone's lists are a little bit more varied. If we all tried to choose the same thing, it would get a little bit dull. That said, I've definitely got some maybe cliche, predictable entries here, but nevertheless, I do believe these games deserve recognition. First on the list is Halo Infinite. This is one of the best shooters of 2021, and there are two main areas of the gameplay that I really loved. Firstly is the enemy variety, and this, to be fair, is something that Halo has been really strong on throughout the entire series. There are lots of enemies from these little grunts which pose little threat, but even they can pull out a little plasma grenade and instantly kill you. And then you have these jackal snipers which are very easy to kill, but they can very easily kill you too. These berserker brutes that will run at you relentlessly and try and just melee you to death. Hunters which have this very small weak spot on their back which are rather hard to take down, especially as they always appear in pairs. And then you've got these boss enemies which are tougher versions. There's just so much going on, and you're not necessarily fighting one type of enemy at once, which means you have to intelligently prioritize how you go about it. And on top of this, Halo, as always, has excellent enemy AI. They react in smart ways. They try and outflank you. They'll melee at the appropriate times, throw grenades. Really impressive stuff, and it's something that so many shooters still haven't caught up on. It's a really great thing about Halo to have such excellent AI. And the second thing I really loved about the gameplay was the brand new grappling hook. It's just one tool, so it might not seem like it would make much of a difference, but it opens up so many more options and makes Master Chief a lot more mobile. You can zip around the environment quickly, just cool style. You can zip yourself to enemies and then whack them in the face. You can grapple onto vehicles and easily hijack them. And then you can even grab like explosive canisters with your grappling hook and then lob them at enemies. Really fun. So many different combinations, new options to choose from. And it really, I think, defines what makes Halo Infinite new in terms of being a Halo game. Without it, I think it could have risked being a bit samey, even though there are some new weapons. So in terms of playing Halo Infinite, it is amazing. Chef-kissed experience when it comes to shooting. However, the reason it's not my top pick for the year is because it is definitely lacking in environmental variety. It really could have done with like a desert biome and a snow biome similar to past Halo games. Instead, you've just got the sort of green pine forests, and then you've also got the Forerunner hallways, but it just repeats so much, and it makes the game feel less complete, I think, than it should do. Also, on the multiplayer side, it is definitely a lot of fun. The guns are great, and it's nice to be able to survive a few hits from opponents in an online shooter. So many games these days you just die instantly, like Call of Duty style, you're dead in less than a second. So it's good to have a slightly higher time to kill, I think. But I do think it could do with more maps, especially larger maps, because that's where I tend to prefer Halo, with all the vehicles and the bigger teams. But thankfully, because it's a live service, hopefully this will improve going into next year. So Halo Infinite, amazing gameplay. However, in terms of its campaign and the environmental variety, it is leaving a little bit to be desired. Next on the list is Metroid Dread, a game where I managed to get caught up in other people's hype. When it was originally announced, I wasn't all that excited. I didn't know the series, so I had no reason to be so hyped for a side-scroller. But I saw the reaction from fans, and I've learned that there's no smoke without fire on this sort of thing. If enough people are that excited purely based on the legacy of a franchise, you have to believe that this new game might be something worth looking forward to. So I decided to get it, and I'm very glad I did. It is definitely the gameplay I love most about Metroid Dread. The story is there and it's fine, but it's not particularly pervasive in terms of the overall experience. It's not the main focus. And the graphics are nice in terms of the art design, but it is of course a Switch game, which is going to inevitably hold it back. But the gameplay is absolutely rock solid. I loved the fluidity that Samus uses to go throughout the environment. For some reason I thought that because she wore power armor, she'd be a bit slow and a bit bulky, but no, she's like Sonic levels of speed sometimes, and it makes taking on the bosses and evading the Emmys, which are these really dangerous opponents that can one-shot you if you're not careful. It makes it a lot of fun just to move throughout the environment. And an interesting thing about my experience with this game is that although I did enjoy my first playthrough, it was my second playthrough that it really clicked with me why people like this series. And I think it's because there are definitely some gameplay decisions which aren't that intuitive on your first run through if you haven't played the series before. But once you've experienced it once and you play again, even if you do it on hard mode, which is what I did, funnily enough, it's actually a bit easier because you know where to go, you know where the power-ups are, and you know the language of Metroid, if you know what I mean. This will be my wildcard going onto the list this year, Chorus, a game I almost missed completely. I really just wanted a game to play during the Christmas break, and I was going through the Microsoft Store, happened upon it, gave it a try, and fell in love with the combat in this game. It is so much fun. I talked about it in my recent review, but it's the drift mechanic when you're flying through space, the ability to preserve your forward momentum while angling your ship in any direction you want to shoot enemies. That sounds like such a small thing, like why does that fundamentally change everything? But it really does. It changes the way you approach dogfights, it gives you a massive advantage against really overwhelming odds of just so many different enemies and different enemy types. And then you've also got these psychic powers, which are called the rights, and they add more to the combat. You can teleport behind opponents, you can fire forward like a psychic spear of death. The weaponry feels great. It's just altogether a fantastic package. And along with this are some really nice graphics, and the story as well, while not its strongest asset, is quite intriguing and something worth experiencing. So Chorus, it won't be on everyone's list this year, but it deserves to be among the best, I think, in my humble opinion. Whereas I put the last 3 entries on the list there largely because of their gameplay, I'm putting Resident Evil Village on the list because of its atmosphere and its pacing. Pacing is quite a hard thing to get right in gaming. Like, we have a lot of live service games these days which are designed deliberately to almost waste your time, and it's not like you're having fun throughout every moment of the game, you're just trying to get to an objective. But Resident Evil Village is a game where you will want to savour every moment. Every aspect of the experience is there for a reason. It's not looking to waste your time. It is best described as a roller coaster of a game. It is fun the whole way through. It's compelling. It's interesting. It's intriguing. The story is very good and the characters are just mind-blowing. I think it's fair to say that Lady Dimitrescu really captured the imagination of the gaming landscape earlier this year. But to be fair, she is not the only good character in the game. I really liked Heisenberg, the sort of pseudo-Magneto character. The others are kind of interesting as well, but those two are definitely the standouts. The gameplay is as good as I think it needs to be. It's not like it would be a good idea to put Halo combat into a Resident Evil game because you'd be too powerful to have any kind of fear of the enemies. So they get it right where you can't move too easily and you can't aim too easily. You have to take pulls, aim, and then shoot while you're staring at these horrifying enemies that you need to deal with. Graphically, the game's very nice as well. It's got both a fantastic art style but also looks very realistic at the same time, and you don't often get both of those together. If there's any negatives, I suppose I wish it was just a little bit longer, but it's nothing new for the series. They're often around the sort of 5 to 8 hour mark depending on difficulty. And also there is a twist in the game, and maybe you'll know what I'm talking about, but obviously I don't want to give it away, where when they explained why the twist happened, I just rolled my eyes and didn't think it was at all believable. But for the most part of the game, really enjoyed it, a lot of fun, and yeah, deserves to be number 3, bronze, for Game of the Year 2021 on my list. My runner-up for Game of the Year 2021 is Psychonauts 2, one of the most creative games you'll ever play. I loved going through this title. I played it on Xbox Series X. It looks gorgeous. It's got a really fantastic Tim Burton-esque almost art style, though even then it's quite unique in and of itself. It's a really great platformer, and I think if I was trying to make a Game of the Year for platformers, like specifically the platforming aspect of the game, I would give it to Psychonauts 2. It's really solid. There is combat in the game, and You do have a lot of abilities, which I always commend for giving some variety, but at the same time, I didn't think all of the abilities blended as well as they could have done, which is why I didn't make this my game of the year. But in terms of the concept of the game, the visuals, and the writing, like the writing is the best of the year by far. It's just got such witty dialogue. You're not constantly laughing at it, but you're just sitting there with a smile on your face because it's just so clever. Like, it's subtly intelligent writing, and I really can imagine they spent a lot of time getting the script together for this game because it's just so on point. And the overall narrative as well, really bonkers, but in a good way. Like, there's so much nutty stuff going on in Psychonauts 2, but it makes it all to its own advantage. You never think it's too absurd. It just works for the game. Loved it, love Psychonauts 2, and if you haven't played it yet, you really should. Here it is, finally, my game of the year 2021 goes to Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This is what next gen really looks like. It is jaw-dropping how visually spectacular Ratchet & Clank is. Some of the set pieces that go on in this game, you can barely believe this is being done in real time. And not only that, but you've got some fantastic options to play the game. There's the fidelity mode, which goes at 30 FPS and full 4K with ray tracing, and some of the best ray tracing, if not the best ray tracing on any console game. You got a balanced mode between ray tracing and a slightly lower resolution, but 60 FPS. And then there's a 60 FPS without ray tracing, but it has a higher resolution. And then, for those with a 120Hz screen, you've even got this interesting fidelity mode where it runs at 40 FPS, but without stuttering because it's a division of the 120Hz. So I'm spending a bit of time talking about the graphics there, but it really is a big part of why I love this game. But it is not the only part, because graphics alone do not make for a great game. And whenever I hear someone refer to this as a tech demo, I get a little bit disheartened, because what is also excellent about Rift Apart would be the gameplay. And as you can probably tell from this list, gameplay matters to me a lot. So the fundamental loop of this game is that you get weapons, these weird and wacky weapons, you use them, you upgrade them, and then you evolve them into these more powerful versions of them. And so as you're going through the game, you're collecting these weapons, but you're also using the weapons so you can upgrade them. And the upgrade system, which works by using them, kind of compels you to use weapons that you might have otherwise not, and you end up finding that weapons you may have not tried are actually really good. And that's what happened to me, where there were some weapons where I saw them and thought that doesn't sound particularly useful, but because I wanted to upgrade them so that I could eventually upgrade everything to max, I found that they were very good. The story in the game is also really well told, helped in no small part of course by those excellent graphics. The virtual performances really stand out and are complemented by fantastic voice acting from the entire cast. It's a great narrative, but if I did have one thing I would have preferred, I did prefer the edgier, almost irreverent tone of the older Ratchet & Clank games. This can seem a bit soppy at times, but I can't fault the quality of how it's told. It really is rivaling a lot of high quality animated movies at this point. So these were my favourite games of 2021, Ratchet & Clank being my game of the year. Let me know your favourite games of 2021 in the comments below. As always people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.